Hi, this is John from Sharp Mountain Games, and today we're taking a look at Basic Fantasy 4th edition, and we'll do that right after the intro. So today we're going to take a look at Basic Fantasy 4th edition. Now, Basic Fantasy has been around since 2006, and the project's spearheaded, and the publisher is Chris Gonnerman. So he was the main force behind Basic Fantasy and still is. However, lots of other people have contributed to it, providing free artwork, free editing, writing. So it's often called the Basic Fantasy Project rather than the Basic Fantasy Product, I think is a good way to think about it, in that, there's just so many other people involved. Now, I want to make a disclosure that I've been part of it for a number of years. I've given them a lot of artwork, or contributed a lot of artwork, I should say, and done a little bit of writing for a few small supplements. So that's my involvement with the project. I also run Basic Fantasy on Thursday nights and have for years. So what is it? If you remember or you've heard of the old Basic Expert books, often called Classic D&D, Basic Fantasy was a way to keep that same kind of game alive. But it's not exactly like the old Basic Expert books. There are some other clones out there that do that. So I would say Basic Fantasy is maybe not so much a retro clone as a retro-inspired game, because it's not seeking to exactly replicate a particular edition of the game. So what do you get in Basic Fantasy that might make you want to consider it? You get race and class are split. In the old BX, you played an elf or a dwarf or a halfling, and some people don't like that as much. I don't mind it, I think. I think for new players, it's good to give them it kind of gives them an archetype to play. But I can understand, as you play a little bit, you might say, well, I want to be a halfling thief, or I want to be a dwarven cleric. And Basic Fantasy lets you do that in that it splits those two things apart, much the way AD&D did. Now, it uses Ascending Armor class, so it's not linked to really, really old ideas that are difficult to understand in every case by any means, because Ascending Armor class is more modern and it's just easier to deal with. You get 1 to 20 levels. In the old Basic Expert sets, I believe the highest they went up to is 14, although the Rule Cyclopedia, of course, increased that. But you get 1 to 20 levels, which should be fine for most campaigns. I don't think most campaigns are going to make it to 20th level anyway. And it's all the material, monsters, adventures are very easily convertible, or you can use them almost exactly as they are if you want to play an older edition of the game or if you're working with other OSR products. So let's take a look inside the book. Now, the book is 200 pages, and I'm not going to do every single page because that's a little bit crazy. But let's talk about, this is the 4th edition. Now, why put out a 4th edition? I actually don't know that there were any plans to do this, but with the problems earlier this year with the Open Gaming License, Chris and the other authors on the project wanted to separate themselves from the OGL. Now, with the Dungeons & Dragons rules being placed in Creative Commons, that actually kind of opened some things up in that you'd be able to use terms like the owlbear, and your kobolds could look a little bit like the traditional kobolds from the game. So this is released under Creative Commons Attribution, Share Alike, and what does all that mean? It means if you want to use anything from here, even otherwise, you can do that. But you do have to use the same attribution. So you have to use the same copyright with Creative Commons if you want to publish, something that's going to be using the material in here. And like I said, I'm not going to go through everything, but it gives you the standard introduction and how to make a player character. And you have your races and your classes, and you can see you get the character charts. These are very reminiscent of the old school charts that were in the original games. But they go up to level 20, which is an advantage. Equipment, vehicles. I believe siege engines might be new for this edition. And then, of course, you get spells. Plenty of spells here, taking up to 6 level spells. And you get the descriptions and a lot of nice new artwork. Like I know this is a new piece of artwork here. And there's a whole lot of new artwork just sprinkled all the way through the book. There's a very nice wizard there on the bottom of the page. So you get your spells. And it's very compact, but you can still do pretty much anything you need to. Now, then you get into the adventuring rules, for dungeoneering and opening doors and traps. Again, all inspired by the classic rules. And how to do a wilderness adventure or hire retainers. how to level up for experience, and you're going to be using those charts, to help you to know whether you get an attack bonus or anything like that. And then the encounter is really your combat rules. And I think in a lot of ways, some of the explanations of the combat rules are a little clearer than they were in the traditional game. Because you also get options here for evasion and pursuit and charging and missile fire, of course. And it also gets into, well, what about your clerics and holy water? And if you want to throw oil on somebody, wrestling and brawling. So pretty much all of your main stuff is covered here. Anything you'd like to do. And then, well, now the clerics versus undead table, I might have actually wanted to put that with the clerics chart under character creation, but it's here in the encounter chart chapter, because that maybe is where you're going to be looking more while you're running if you're GMing in a game. And then we get into the saving throws, and it still has the classical saving throws here: death ray, magic wands, paralysis, dragon breath. So it's trying to evoke that older spirit. And then a lot of monsters, and you can see barklings. Those little dog people, they're new, I know, for 4th edition. And I have 2 or 3 images in the monster section here. And you get all your standards. So you don't need to buy a separate monster manual. And you also don't need to feel limited. You could easily take these monsters and reskin them and make them a little bit different for whatever you need for your game. And like I said, we can't go through every one because it's quite a bit. But there's just a ton of new art here in the monster section. So if you have an older edition and you like art, this might be a thought about, why to upgrade. And then we get into, your treasure and how to randomly assign the treasure if you'd like to do that. You don't have to. Of course, you can make it the way you want it to. And then your magic item generation and scrolls and wands and staves and all the traditional magic stuff that you would use. And chapter on game mastering, like if you want to do a more sandboxy type game, you have your charts here, how to set by different levels here. So you could roll a d12 and see what monsters that they might encounter, what kind of wilderness they're in, what they might encounter in town, creating an NPC party. Then we get into things that are more game master advice. How do you deal with players? And there are some optional rules here. There's even more optional rules available on the website. So I think with Basic Fantasy, some of them are right here you can use, like death and dying. Maybe you think death at 0 hit points is a little too harsh, or you want to go a little easier on your players, or your players are going to want that. He gives you some options here. And the thing about Basic Fantasy and all the older setups, older editions, you can easily import something. If you like a different kind of death and dying rule from another OSR game or even a more modern game, bring it in. You're not going to break anything. It's not going to be game changing. It's easy enough to do. Same thing for poison. You can make poison a little bit less deadly if you want. So he does give some options. Like I said, there's more on the website, basicfantasy.org, and then you can certainly bring anything in from another game you want. And as your magic users get really high level, maybe they want to do spell research, there's some rules for that here. And how to create a dungeon adventure. And how to create a wilderness adventure. And then when they get super high level, well, what if they want to build a stronghold, like their own castle or keep or something like that? And there's some information for you. And then there's a little set of maps here for like a sample little keep. And nice index so you can find everything very quickly. And like I said, it's clocking in at about 201 pages. So let's conclude with the main question. Should you buy the book? Well, if you look on the back of the cover, and I know you're not going to be able to see this real well, it says, don't buy this book. Well, not yet anyway. So the good news is, if you want to take a look at the book, it's for free on the Basic Fantasy website, and I'll link that down below. So you can try it out for free with the PDF version. And here's another thing that's really great. Because it's all free, anybody, if you're playing an online game, with somebody in Canada or somebody in Britain, wherever, they can access the rules. They can access all the optional character classes and races and all that sort of thing for free. So everybody can have the whole library available to them in PDF anywhere in the world for nothing. So, I mean, I think that's really unique in terms of gaming. So if you have a print of an earlier edition, you may not need the updates. If you have 3rd edition, 2nd edition, the rules haven't changed substantially that you would necessarily need to buy a new version of it. However, should you consider buying it? Sure. If you want a more streamlined game than the current edition, let's just say, we're hearing about DM burnout with the current edition. Well, maybe it's because the rules are really complicated and there's so many player options that people are getting turned off by that. So if you want to go back to an older, more streamlined version, this is the book to consider. Now, I think one thing also that really speaks in its favor is that it's one book. As we saw inside, you get all the character creation, you get all the adventuring and combat rules, you get all the monster rules and spells, everything. One book. It's kind of like a desert island book. You just don't need to buy anything else. No need to buy 3 $50, or I understand they're going to go up to like $65 hardbacks just to get started on a game. I mean, that's crazy. So also, beyond being one book, it's cheap. The hardback I got $16, $17 on Amazon as I'm recording this. And again, I'll put a link down below where you can get it on Amazon and print on demand. So you just can't beat that. I mean, really, you just can't beat that in terms of getting a physical book. And that's for the hardback. You're just not going to get a hardback for under $20 in any other game system. Now, if you do want to buy it also, there's a lot of great new artwork. So, you can take a look at that. It's really nice to have for your collection. And what I really like to have is a print copy myself during play. I know PDFs are available and all that, but just for myself, it's a lot quicker. Just flip, get a spell description, and it really makes things a little easier for me anyway during play. So, and another last reason you might want to consider supporting it is that you're supporting independent gaming. You're not giving your money to some giant mega corporation. And in fact, I know that Chris prints these at almost cost. And the reason he does that is because I think it's very ethical of him that he doesn't want to be making money off of other people's artwork and other people's editing and other people's writing. He wants this to be a project where, you're getting the stuff almost at cost and he's not making money, because I think really, he could be asking a lot more. I think the book itself is worth a lot more. So it's really a labor of love, contributed for free by many people. It's almost open source gaming, or it is open source gaming. And I think that's really unique and special in this day and age. So if you've had any experiences with Basic Fantasy, any edition, let us know in the comments below. And then here's a quick blurb about some other things that I've written that are compatible with Basic Fantasy and other OSR games and OSR retro clones. Thanks for watching. And if you'd like to check out the titles from Sharp Mountain Games, you can see our 2 in-print adventures, The Dwarven Pickup Truck and The Sky Tree, at Amazon, Lulu, or drivethrurpg. You can also check out our digital titles, which include adventures, map packs, new character classes, and character cards, and they're at drivethrurpg or the Roll20 Marketplace. Wherever you like to shop, odds are that we're there. So you know what to do. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe. All the links to our products are in the description below. And thanks, and we hope to see you again soon.